Hey guys, welcome back to Unsolicited Plant Talks. My name is April and thank you so much for being so patient with me. I haven't uploaded videos in quite a long time, and that is because everything just kind of took over my time. However, I would like to make a point of making more of these kinds of videos and documenting all of the cool things that I find in the greenhouses and tips and tricks on how to grow Hoyas and all that good stuff, so that you can also figure out what would be the best way to take care of your Hoyas at home. Maybe there's something that I might be able to share with you and you're like, wow, I never thought of that. Or maybe you have something that you can share with me in the comment down below. And yeah, let's learn together. I love learning, so if you guys are willing to learn with me and willing to embark this journey, let's go. I hope the wind is not picking up too much over here on the microphone, because this is probably the nicest spot of the greenhouse right now. I'm in the warehouse greenhouse that we have. So a lot of our props are right here, which is so perfect because today I am going to talk about props. A couple of days ago, if you are following us on Instagram, I had put up a poll or a question of what are the biggest challenge that you face when you're propagating. It is the perfect time of the year to propagate. It's warm, it's beautiful. So this is definitely the perfect time to talk about these kinds of stuff. And for all of you who had given me responses, thank you so much. I have compiled a lot of them and I'm gonna try to answer all of the ones that I thought I can share some of the information that I know, or like at least my personal experience. And yeah, we'll go from there. I love propagating, by the way. I have random questions here. I didn't really put them together, but I just chose all of the ones that I thought would be good to respond to. So first question, curious to know what's your preferred medium for Hoya props? Stratum and pon gets expensive. Another one is, I have the worst luck propagating in soil. Either it's too dry or too wet and rots. What is the right medium for propagation? Best way to prop Hoyas, favorite medium to root in? Okay, so those are some really good questions. As you guys know, we use a lot of coco husk or coco medium, which is husk, core, and as you can see right here, let me show you guys one of the examples. Let's find you a really good one. These are really cute, so let me show you guys these guys. So you see right here, this is a Dischidia actually. This is a Dischidia Kerrii or Kerrii. It's so cute. And I don't know if you guys can see, this is just pure husks. So we typically just take our cutting, put it in this husk, and yep, you can see right there, we got good roots going. They're still babies, so they don't have really good massive root system yet, but they're already established. This is good to go to a new home. And if you get one of these and you have that amount of roots, that just tells you that you don't have to up pot your plant and stress it out even more, because you have a lot of room for growth this growing season. So this is a Dischidia Kerrii, and this is in pure husk. One of the challenges actually that I had encountered with husk, especially here in California, is it dries out too fast. And when you let it dry out for too long, it's very hard for it to rehydrate. That's also a lot of the complaints of a lot of the people that are growing in husk as well, pure husk. Although that is not a problem with our growing condition, because everything is in a greenhouse, it's always humid here, it's not really drying out as fast as compared to if you were growing at home or outdoors. However, it is still a problem, and this is not something that we wanted to deal with, or we want our customers to deal with. Also, California went through a long period of drought, so even though they're doing well with just pure husk, we have to consistently water, and it's not very sustainable for the kind of crisis that we're in currently. So we started adding coco core. So let me see if I can find an example for you. I can't find anything with coco core. We have turned a lot of the stuff so much. Okay, so let's see, maybe these guys will have some cool stuff. I should have prepared for this, but if y'all know me, I'm never prepared. I'm back. I found something. Okay, first of all, let me just show off how beautiful this plant is. This is a buntokensis, Hoya buntokensis. And the accession number is SLM01. So here she is. Look at that. Also, the back of this plant is so beautiful. You can't really see it here because it's not really exposed to bright light. But if you go right there, you'll see those like purple dots. I know it doesn't look as appealing, but I promise you, it's really beautiful. Anyway, so this one is a really good one, a really good example. So this one's still a prop, so it hasn't really done a lot of like cool stuff yet. However, as you can tell right there, I have husk and core all mixed in. And for a little bit, I think we did half and half, but I thought like it was staying too wet for too long. So I think we did 75-25. So 75% of husk and 25% of just pure core. This way, as you guys know, or if you're not familiar, coco core dries out much faster than soil, but it also holds as much moisture or water like soil. So if you are growing something like Hoyas that are epiphytes and you wanted a medium that holds a little bit more moisture but doesn't stay wet for too long, then core would be the perfect fit for you. However, if you use pure core, it still does take a little bit for them to dry out. So I don't recommend using pure core on certain plants. So yeah, so that was really good. Another problem with that, with core and with coco husk, they do stay moist a little longer than normal, which is a good thing because that's what I'm looking for. However, because they're staying moist longer, then there's more chances or more time frame for fungus gnats to go in, breed, and destroy everything. And I really hate fungus gnats. If you've never dealt with fungus gnats, good for you. However, there's always a solution for everything. So what we decided on doing is putting our regular mix, which is 25% core, 75% coco husk, and on top, a small layer, we just put coco core on top. What happens is it dries out so much faster, even though the bottom is still moist, the top dries out. And because it's dry, it's preventing gnats to go in it and lay their eggs and distribute the evil. So that's what we're currently doing right now. Every year, we're constantly growing. We're constantly finding better ways to grow plants, the most efficient way as much as possible. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's what we're currently doing. Also, coco core helps a lot, especially when your plant starts getting bigger and actually drinks a lot more, because even though in the beginning it does stay moist for a lot longer, later on when your plant develops a lot of roots and your plant gets bigger, then it's going to hold a good amount of water and you don't have to really worry about it until it gets way too big and you find yourself watering every day. So that's my answer for all those questions. I hope that's helpful. Next question, what do we have? Adding it back into the original pot. So I actually got a lot of questions about how do I transition from my rooting medium to the medium that I want to keep the plant in permanently. One thing that I can tell you, at least with us, is that with coco core, coco husk mix, we propagate directly in there and the plants live there permanently until it's time to uppot. And the reason why it's so good for propagation, in my experience and in my opinion, and this is not just coco, everything has pros and cons. You can use leca, you can use pon, you can use stratum. There's so many different options out there, so find what's best for you. Everything has pros and cons, and just see which one you would be willing to live with it. So with us, the reason why I chose coconut products is, number one, it's organic, it's cheaper, and also it's what everybody in Southeast Asia are using, and it has been proven to be very successful. It has its own pros and cons, so if you guys wanted more information, we also have a blog about our coconut husk. You can go ahead and click on the link in the description and it'll take you there. I like growing them here, like I said, because they only hold so much moisture and so much wetness for a certain amount of time that prevents the plant from rotting before it actually produces roots. It also gives you a lot of aeration in the root balls, so you don't have to worry about overwatering your plant. The only thing that you would really have to watch for is how often you have to keep the medium moist. Because if you leave it out for too long and it dries out for too long, then there's no difference than getting it cutting and putting it on top of your kitchen table and forgetting about it. So you have to make sure that it's consistently moist in there. You don't have to keep the plant in a moist container or a moist environment or a humid environment for it to root. However, it is going to help because it is the plant's way to obtain hydration, in a sense, is through their leaves as well. So if you provide it with a very humid environment, then the plant is not going to go through shock as much as if you were to just root in a 30% humidity. So that's one of the things. I guess it's hard for me to answer that question because, like I said, we propagate in the medium that we're going to keep it in. Now, it's also possible to do that in soil. I've done it in soil before. You just have to make sure that you have a very well aerated soil. One thing to know is that soil does hold a lot of moisture. If you water from top, then it's going to get all crammed into the pot. So you're going to have a very compact medium that's suffocating your stems, and your stems are most likely going to rot before they produce roots. If you're propagating directly to a medium that you're trying to use permanently, that's my suggestion is just find a medium that's well aerated enough that also you think is going to hold enough moisture later on when the plant is actually established. If you have already propagated into a different medium, personally, I haven't had any troubles transplanting because I've also had plants where I propagated in a different medium and I transplanted. However, the biggest key to that, or the biggest answer that I could give you with that, is when you remove the plant from the medium that you had propagated from, I don't remove everything. I just literally keep it and let it hold on its own and then put it in a new medium where I'm planning on keeping it permanently. I know that only works for people who don't really care about the medium that they're using, in a sense. If you are a leca grower and you've propagated in perlite, I know for a fact some people remove every single perlite from the leaves because they want it to attach to leca or they want it to attach to pond. Personally, I think that's the biggest problem with transplanting. It's removing and shocking the roots that are already attached to your rooting medium to be able to transplant it to a new medium. So if you don't have to disturb the roots, I highly recommend just potting them in their new medium with the existing medium that you propagated in. However, if you do use sphagnum moss, I don't know what to tell you because that holds so much water. And if you try to remove that, number one, if you try to remove the moss from the roots, you're going to rip out the roots. Also, the roots are not as strong because it's so used to the moss, and then you're going to put it in soil or you're going to put it in a different kind of medium that the plant's not used to after stripping the moss out of the roots. Then it's, hey, you're re-rooting the plant again. So I know a lot of people who find success in it. I just personally don't like using it because it's so much work for me. If I am going to propagate in something that's not permanent, I do actually propagate in pure core in a small seed container, and as soon as they're rooted, I take them out, put them in a new pot, and then just put my other mix. And with that, it doesn't really stress out the plant too much. It doesn't really go into shock, so I really like that method. So I hope that helps. So that answers tips for transitioning from fluval stratum to chunky soil as well. Okay, when to water when dry, kept moist. The universal rule is you want to keep it moist. You want to keep it moist to where the roots are actually going to be active. However, I know a lot of people don't know, how do I keep it moist? How often do I water? Honestly, Hoyas are very, especially if you keep them in a humid or in a controlled environment, they're very forgiving. So if you forget to water, if you let your medium dry out, as long as the environment's humid, it's very forgiving. It's not gonna die as quick as you think that it would. Now, when to water or how to water these kinds of stuff, it all depends on what kind of medium you're using. I recommend, if you're able, it's really nice to have a self-watering pot. It just does everything for you. However, if you don't have an access to a self-watering pot, you can just make sure that the top of the soil or the top is always moist. Or if you don't want to do that because of gnats, you can also bottom water. So if you bottom water, it will soak up just enough water in there and you'll be golden. I don't know how often you'll have to water yours because I don't know your environment, so you just have to watch it for yourself. Remember, it's always better to have less than more. So you don't want to overwater your props, but it's always better to keep it moist, but less is more. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Makes sense to me. I have the worst luck propagating in soil. Either it's too dry or too wet and rots. Then maybe soil is not the best for you. You might want to do perlite. Perlite's also easily available. You can go to your local store, you can get a perlite, and you can just keep it in a reservoir of water. So if you have a pot, put it in another container with a reservoir of water, or you can keep it in an enclosed plastic bag to keep it moist at all times. And as soon as it roots, then you can just transfer the whole thing into a soil mix, and then you're golden. I will have 8 feet vine with no leaves. Do I go for the chop, or is there some way to grow in the leaves? There is a way to grow in the leaves. You don't have to chop if you don't want to. Let me actually show you something real quick. I'll be back. I got distracted. This greenhouse, by the way, interlude, every time I go through here with one task in mind, it's in video games, like there's always obstacles, you're trying to avoid them. I always lose, 100%. I would come here needing to grab a plant or whatever it may be, and on my way there, I'd find something like a new growth, a cool color, or a cool flower, and then I completely forgot about everything else. And then my husband would come here and say, hey, did you grab the stuff that I'm asking you to grab? I'm like, no, what stuff? Anyway, that's what happened to me, but I'm back. Oh, I forgot what I was grabbing for you. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm talking about? I went out to the other greenhouse because I wanted to answer this one question, and I just got distracted because I got to see some other cool shit. Anyway, I will have 8 feet vine with no leaves. Do I just go for the chop, or is there some way to grow in the leaves? A couple of things. I do have a video about trellising and why it's so important to trellis, and that is for those vines that are crazy and going everywhere, not growing any leaves. If you guys haven't seen that, make sure you go ahead and go to our channel and click on those videos because they're very fun and very helpful. So don't just give up on your vines. Also, if you're talking about propagating just a vine like this one, do it, because you don't really need leaves for these guys to root. So this is a Wonder JAD020. There are no roots. Okay, hold on. I had just popped this in here a little bit ago. You can't really see, but right there, see? You can see right there, it's already rooting. Anyway, you get the idea. Look at this. This is just a vine that I didn't want to throw away. Most of the time, I throw them away, but I guess it depends on the day that I'm propagating. Depends on how I'm feeling. I either keep them or throw them away. This one, I decided to keep. Why? I have no idea. I have so many mother plants of this plant. Mr. UPT always ruined my shot. So that's my answer for that one. If you wanted to propagate your vine, or if you have a cutting that has 2 leaves and a really long vine, propagate it anyway. Do I have an example for that? Somewhere. It may have grown already, but yeah, I also do those. Like sometimes I feel like not cutting the vines and I just propagate them how they are, and it usually doesn't affect them. There is a possibility though, the tips of your vine will die back. Other than that, what are you gonna lose? A vine? That sounded rude. Did that sound rude? I'm sorry. What are you gonna lose? It's just a vine. Beating stem rot before roots come out. Don't overwater. Keep moist and make sure that your medium is well aerated. How do you get runners to grow their leaves? This is not really about propagation, but like I said, I have a video about trellising and why it's so important, and it literally answers that question. So if you're interested, make sure to check out that video. I'm also going to put it in the description, so you can just click it there. Any tips on rooting the more hard-stemmed Hoyas like buntokensis? Patience. Hey, do I have any propagation there that's like sad-looking leaves? Sad-looking. This is a Novagos, and you see how, oops, you can just, it has a lot of core. You see how paper thin it is? Honestly, patience. You just leave them as is and make sure that it's not rotting. And sometimes you can tell if it's rotting or not because that base stem right there would be black or mushy. Also, sometimes you will see some yellowing coming from the inside of the leaves, and that is a really good telltale that your cutting has rotted. And if you only have one node, that's probably not a good one anymore. So toss and restart if you can. However, yeah, so for hard-stemmed Hoyas, patience, especially latifolias, they take a long time to root. Okay, let me rephrase that. They don't necessarily take a long time to root. However, they do have to support a big leaf while rooting. So it's dividing its energy into staying alive and rooting. So if you're trying to provide energy to a big leaf, then yep, it's gonna take longer. Anyway, I'm gonna do a part 2 because my thing is dying and I wanna go in depth. This is like a last minute thing that I decided to record. Yep, thanks for watching and I'll see you in part 2.